All right, folks, it's time for the World Edition news and all along those lines. So we got a lot going on in the world. But we're being joined by some of the regulars and see what they've got on their mind. But right now, let's see what's happening in the world and around the world. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping discuss trade and Iran in Beijing. So definitely there are some key takeaways from Trump's China trip. So U.S. President says a lot of problems settled as he meets with the leader of China. So in pageantry and politics, China summit yields Xi's goal, which is equal footing with the U.S. CIA Director John Ratcliffe visits Cuba amid their energy crisis. So the CIA chief has visited Cuba as Trump urges sweeping changes. The U.S. and Cuba intensify negotiations as the island's collapse deepens. So CIA Director John Ratcliffe meets with Cuban officials in Havana. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. The Supreme Court preserves access to mail distribution of widely used abortion pill. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely lots going on in that space and around that space. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about. In China's summit, Trump touts the fantastic trade deal with Xi as nations try to stabilize their relationships and all along those lines. U.S. is canceling deployment of 4,000 troops to Poland. No idea it was coming, Pentagon officials stunned by Hessi's decision on troops in Poland. So Poland is scrambling to respond after Pentagon ditches troop deployment plan. So it looks like a lot of folks will be leaving out of that area. Ukraine says Russia launches massive and virtually nonstop strikes on Kiev, killing at least 24 folks. And all along that line, Zelensky rages at Russia after strike on Kiev housing block kills 24. Russia hammers Ukraine in the biggest prolonged drone attack since the war began. There's been an Ebola outbreak in Congo's Itera. A new Ebola outbreak is confirmed in a remote Congo province with 65 deaths reported and all along those lines. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about as well. New Ebola outbreak confirmed in Congo, 65 suspected deaths. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about also. Pentagon considering renaming Iran war sledgehammer if a ceasefire collapses. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. U.S. might restart strikes on Iran. Trump and Hedges are warning about that. So that's something else going on also. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about and all in that line. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, and definitely a lot's taking place in that way and all in that sense. So definitely a lot's taking place, and we'll be hearing more about this as well. So there's a lot going on in the world, and always glad to be talking about a number of these stories and hearing what people's reactions are to what's taking place and all in that space. So lots going on in the world, and we're glad to be reporting on these various stories and hear what folks have to say about a number of these stories as they take place and all along those lines. So definitely a lot taking place, and we've got a lot of stories that are going on as well. So definitely lots taking place, and we'll be hearing more about these stories as they continue and all along those lines. Five Italians died during a cave scuba dive in the Maldives. Five Italian tourists killed in Maldives a cave diving accident as authorities search the water and all in that kind of way. So definitely a lot going on in the world, and I'm hoping to get my guys coming in very shortly and hear what they've got to say about a number of these stories and even more in the world as well. So a lot going on in the world, and we'll be trying to bring them in and seeing what they've got to say about a number of these stories also. So lots taking place, and we're always glad to be reporting these things and letting folks know what's going on and how they can help us in these various news stories. So, like I said, we'll be hearing more about a number of these stories and seeing what folks have got happening even in their world as well. So lots going on and all in that space. So definitely lots taking place, and we'll be hearing more about these stories as things continue and all along those lines. So hopefully folks will be joining me and all in that space, but we'll be continuing with some of the news as we go around the world and see what's happening in various parts of the world. So some folks are saying how a Jim Cafazil film got mixed up in a Brazilian political scandal. A bombshell leak threatens Flavio Bolsonaro's election bid. So tape shows Bolsonaro's son asked jailed banker for $26.8 million to fund a film on his father. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. Australian court doubles payout for trans women in a landmark discrimination case. Australian court upholds ruling for transgender women, double damages against female-only app. Google for Girls app discriminated against trans women. Roxanne Tickle appeals judge rules win doubling damages. So disgusted Pauline fumes over the trans battle is one of the stories that's coming out of that area. Sir Keir Starmer has failed abjectly. He should go. That's what The Economist is reporting. So, leading challenger to the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer quits the government. West Streeting resigns and calls for leadership contest to replace Starmer. Why is the UK Prime Minister facing calls to quit? Enter the killer robots, the Ukrainian forging the future of warfare, sci-fi or battlefield reality. Ukraine's bet on drone swarms. Ukraine is teaming up its war robots with flying drones for maximum effect in battle. Ukrainian soldiers meet an enemy assault group with a ground robot with a machine gun. And Pope decries rise of AI-directed warfare, saying it leads to a spiral of annihilation. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Pope Leo the 14th warned students against the great lie fueling youth anxiety. So definitely a lot's going on in that space as well. Let's see what's happening in the world of the United States and what's happening in our world in the news that's taking place from here and all along those lines. So a lot is taking place in the world, and we're always glad to be covering a lot of these stories and all in that line. So definitely we'll be hearing more about these stories and definitely hearing more in that sense and all along those lines. But let's see what's happening in the United States as, of course, people are still talking about Donald Trump and Xi Jinping discussing trade and the Iran and all along those lines. South Carolina Supreme Court overturns Alex Mardot's conviction, why double jeopardy doesn't apply after court overturns Alex Mardot's murder convictions. So Alex Mardot's son, Buster, reportedly furious after double murder convictions are overturned. He's forced to relive the trauma. So while a retrial of the Mardot case could look a lot different, she torpedoed the Mardot verdict. Here's what became of ex-Caledon clerk Becky Hill. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. How a year of gerrymandering has further slashed competitive House seats. And all along those lines, Democrats get a last minute reprieve on 2026 redistricting, and Republicans feared losing midterms, but fight over voting maps changed all that. And 7 candidates face off in a final gubernatorial California race. So 5 key moments during the California governor debate, and how California gubernatorial candidates said they would address the issue of homelessness. So everyone ganged up on Democrat Becerra in the last governor debate. He seemed to love it. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely a lot going on in the world, and I'm going to send a link. I just sent it to him earlier, but I'll send it again to Rick Rosner, and hopefully Rick will be joining me in a second and all along those lines. So definitely we're going to hear folks' thoughts about a number of the stories going on in the world and all in that way. So definitely hoping to get Rick in here and have others join us as well. But definitely a lot's going on in the world. And like I said, we're hoping to have Rick join us very shortly, and we'll have others joining also as well. But definitely looking forward to hearing from Rick and hearing what Rick's got to say about a number of stories as well. But a lot's going on in the world, and we're always glad to be covering these things and hearing what folks have got to say and how folks are reacting to a number of these stories and all in that way. So, like I said, a lot going on. Apparently, we'll see who the front runner is in California, and maybe Rick will have some ideas around that. Vance blames Democrats as U.S. halts some Medicaid payments, claiming fraud. So, Maine Republicans willing to give Donald Trump time to solve his big political problem, and J.D. Vance praises Senator Susan Collins, a GOP moderate and occasional Trump foe. So, definitely that is something going on in the news as well. So, a lot's going on in that sense, and we'll see what folks have to say about a number of these stories and what their reactions are to a number of these stories as well. But like I said, a lot's going on, and always glad to be hearing what folks have got to say about how things are going on and what they've got going on in their minds and how they are dealing with a number of these stories as well. So, like I said, a lot's going on in the world, and we're always glad to be reporting on these things and hearing what folks' reactions are to these things as well. So, definitely hoping to be hearing from our leaders of this network, Nick Valveda and Kim Calhoun. Hopefully, they'll be coming in very shortly as well, and we'll be hearing from others as well, including Jacoby McDuffie. And who knows, we might even hear from Shaquille if I can get him to come on in, and all along those lines, and maybe even Adam Lamparello. Always good to hear from folks like that and all in that space. So that's something going on, and definitely be. Hey, Ty Heritage Center. Hello, hey, Ty Heritage.
One of the things that business owners forget a lot is to prepare for their own retirement.
Hi, my name's Nick Palavita, and today I'm with a very special guest, a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement plan specialist, and president of National Pension Partners, Max Couliet. Max, tell me what you do at National Pension Partners.
Well, Nick, we help successful small businesses and professionals put together retirement plans that provide them the maximum retirement benefits and big tax deductions at the same time.
Well, how do you do this?
Well, we get on an internet conferencing system with the client, we review their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then put together strategies to help them in implementing a retirement plan that benefits them, not everybody else.
Well, that sounds really good, but how much does this cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner, and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office, to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252-.
Mama, Papa, was your suitcase packed but not mine? How could you leave us kids behind? Parents are going on a cruise without us kids, and we know whose fault this is. Virgin Voyage. know you deserve it, but the fact we can't go is total bull.
Continue with the rest of the news, and like I said, hoping to have folks joining me very shortly and all along those lines. But SCOTUS upholds abortion bill telehealth access, and Trump returns from China visit. So Supreme Court preserves access to mail distribution of widely used abortion pill. And University of Washington student Juniper Blessing has been identified as a victim. So man arrested in connection to University of Washington homicide. So most amazing human being we have ever known, family of a UW student is saying. So that being the University of Washington, though UW can also stand for University of Wisconsin and other universities too. But in this case, it is the University of Washington. Slain trans University of Washington student identified as Juniper Blessing. So that's what folks are talking about as well. Judge denies Democratic motion for restraining order in a redistricting lawsuit. Judge allows Tennessee map favoring Republicans to move ahead. Tennessee new congressional map faces challenges over minority power. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. So like I said, hopefully we'll be getting some of our folks coming in very shortly and having them have conversations with us and all in that space. So looking forward to having their thoughts around a number of stories and hearing what they've got on their mind as well. So lots going on, and we're always glad to be having these conversations here on the Pod TV and with folks in that sense and all along those lines. So definitely looking forward to hearing what folks' reactions are to a number of stories. We know at 11 o'clock, we're going to have the Ukraine-Russia show and all in that way. So definitely folks will be hopefully joining us very shortly, and then we'll have some further conversation and all along those lines. But a lot's going on in the world, and we're always glad to be having these conversations. And like I said, hopefully our leaders will be coming in very shortly to share their thoughts as well. So lots going on in the world, and always glad to have folks coming in and joining us and hearing what they've got going on in their world as well. So definitely lots going on in the world, and a lot going on in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, and all over the place that is going on right now. So hopefully folks will be coming in and sharing their insights also, but we'll be hearing that in a minute and hear what folks have got to say about a number of things in that regard. So always glad to have these conversations, and we'll be having folks coming in and sharing their thoughts as well. Yale School of Medicine has been accused of violating federal law. Justice Department finds Yale Medical School discriminated based on race in admissions. The U.S. Department of Justice says Yale School of Medicine discriminated based on race in admissions. So Justice Department accuses Yale School of discriminating against white and Asian applicants. And New York governor says fewer spend second homes to pay pad a tier tax under a new proposal. So that looks like this was something else that folks are talking about as well. So while fears of a New York wealth exodus swirl, sales for city homes worth $10 million more are going strong. So a lot of folks are buying these homes that are highly priced, but New York's plan tax on homes over $1 million purchased with cash. And Governor Gavin Newsom unveils a revised California budget proposal. So California is flush with cash. Newsom wants to cut spending anyway. Here's why. So definitely Newsom's narrative and the precarious gauntlet. So Newsom celebrates as the AI boom bails out California. So definitely that's something folks are talking about as well. 2 people killed after a plane crashes into Akron home. NTSB expected to investigate the deadly plane crash into an Akron home. So I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner, see what he's got going on in his world.
Hello.
And all along those lines and all in that space, but a lot's taking place in the world. I understand that y'all have a governor's race, and the Trump administration is rushing to steady Kennedy's HHS with an eye on the midterms. I guess they're trying to hope that this will be
we got a big governor's race with, I guess the ballot is like 90 days long. There's a very low barrier to run for governor. You got to get a certain number of names on a petition, and so we probably have 7 major candidates, but another 7 dozen lunatics. So it might be a complicated ballot to fill out. Also, we have a mayor race with quite a few candidates, and California usually is spared the vicious political advertising because we're such a blue state that we get left alone, because there's no point in running, pro-Trump ads, in 2020, 2024, because he had no chance to win California. But this time around, anybody can win these frickin' races, and so we are seeing super nasty political ads all the time, and they're not so fun. I feel sorry makes us feel sorry for the rest of the country, swing states like Ohio that see these every time we have an election.
Yeah, that's always the case and everything like that. So I know a lot of people. How many candidates do y'all have running for governor?
Like I said, 90 some, with 7 of them being major candidates that are getting more than 2% of the votes, say.
Wow.
We've got 2 strong Republican candidates. We've got Steve Hilton and Chad Blanco, and on the Dem side, you've got Becerra, you've got Katie Porter. Who am I? Oh, Tom Steyer is a billionaire who's spent a ton, maybe $100 million on running ads. So yeah, and then we have state controller, we have lieutenant governor, we have treasurer, a lot of ads.
Sounds like a lot of ads.
Day 12. This is day 12, where the average national average price of gas is over $4.50. We're in the 6th week of gas being over $4 a gallon.
Things the people are worried about, and I know that even Sasha has talked about it before as well. But there's this person that's running our health department that used to be connected and is still connected to a famous family, that being Robert Kennedy. But now there are senators, I think both on the Democratic and the Republican side, that are worried that there are some major jobs that aren't filled right now. So there's no permanent FDA, CDC head, or Surgeon General, and they're definitely saying that this is unprecedented and untenable.
Right. So, and we have stuff going on. We got the biggest measles number of measles cases in 30 years. In Africa, there's a huge Ebola outbreak with like 250 cases, which is very concerning. Of course, we have hantavirus, which is less concerning because it's fairly hard to catch hantavirus from a person. You usually catch it from a rodent. But yeah, we got a lot of medical stuff going on, and nobody to watch over it. The last time there was a huge medical thing, and the people who were supposed to watch over it had been disbanded. That was COVID. And COVID killed 1.25, maybe 1.4 million Americans. More Americans than have died in all of our wars for the past 250 years combined. So, yeah, we should have some people in place.
Well, speaking of having people in place, apparently, and we talked a little bit about Cuba and what's going on, but I just found this out today, and apparently it was reported yesterday. The U.S. is moving to indict Cuba's Raul Castro, which I believe is Fidel's brother and everything like that.
Yeah, I just saw that. Okay, Raul Castro, is 94 years old. He's not running the country, but yeah, go ahead and, Cuba is being starved to death. They have zero oil, they have zero gas, and the Cuba. I don't know. Based on the little I've read, it might be possible to tip over Cuba. We can't tip over Iran. We can't do regime change in Iran.
We can do regime change in Cuba and maybe even some of the other Latin American countries, but it doesn't help that the U.S. Border Patrol chief has resigned. So that was some other things that came off of Fox and some of the other networks. So apparently, and I remember seeing him on the news a couple of times, but Michael Banks has resigned his position. And apparently there's like a latest immigration team with shakeup. So I guess Trump is not happy with his immigration numbers. Maybe he wants to deport more people. So maybe he's not happy with what's going on in that sense. So any take on this idea? Because apparently he's has a Border Patrol chief that has left.
I don't know. I just heard about it when you said it. There's another thing the Trump is in China meeting with Xi, right? And the Chinese, what is he, president, said he hopes that the U.S. and China can avoid the Thucydides trap. And so that's a term that nobody, including myself, most people don't know what it means. So I looked it up. The Thucydides trap is a political theory stating that when a rising power threatens to displace an established power, the resulting structural stress makes war between them likely, if not inevitable. So that when the Chinese president said this, it was a diss to the U.S. He was not implying, but pretty much straight out saying that the U.S. is a shrinking, falling power, and China is a rising power, and he hopes that we can avoid war because of that. But it feels like he's not wrong either. But I think and is he right to bring up the issue? Yeah. Will we avoid war? I think so, because China doesn't need to fight us to achieve economic dominance in the next.
They don't have to do that at all. Hey, Sasha,
let's hear from Sasha about the Thucydides trap.
Right.
Well, you've explained it, I think, about this trap, and it's kind of a obscure terminology, because the situation where one power is extending and the one is declining, it's not happening very often. It's not every day's event. So you have to really find a right situation where it could be applied. And I think probably this one is the right situation. Because by all means, China is exceeding US almost in all parameters. US is declining power, that's sure. US, I don't know, I think economy of US is unsustainable. I think it will probably collapse, and not in too distant future. There are two economies, one for the rich people who are making all the money, and who's example of them you saw probably in Beijing, all these captains of American AI and all the high-tech industries. They all went with him. Essentially, so they show how much they support Trump and Republican Party. But it can backfire, by the way, if Republicans will lose midterm election, and it will become obvious that they will lose presidential election for sure. Then what these guys are going to do? Because the Democrats, they're not famous for their vindictiveness, but in situations like this, they could become vindictive. And they could get congressional hearings and all the investigations of all this Elon Musk and all this other great visionaries and so on. And I think people will support that. They don't want to be dominated by a dozen of trillionaires or billionaires or so on. So they will be very happy to see how these people will be unraveled and probably taken to jail and have their businesses expropriated.
And it's not necessarily vindictiveness, because we've seen what playing nice gets us. We let Nixon off the hook, and the Republicans came back after one term of Jimmy Carter. We let Trump off the hook after January 6th. He was bad for the country. 2020 was a terrible year for the country. And we let him off the hook. We didn't impeach him. We didn't, successfully prosecute him. And he came back, and he's been terrible for the country. So
speaking of being terrible for the country, Rick, and everything like that, there is another story that involves your large state. But apparently, Trump officials have hit California with the largest ever freeze on Medicaid funds, and they're actually saying that he's trying to cut blue state Medicaid fraud and save more.
Because you talk about vindictive. Trump said this term would be about revenge. He's being a dick. You know, he's withholding funds from blue states. He and Jared Kushner tried to do this with COVID supplies in 2020. He likes to screw the blue states.
You know, speaking of getting screwed and everything like this is an immigration story, but apparently a judge has ordered the Trump administration to return a Colombian woman who was deported to the Democratic Republic of Congo back to the U.S. As a matter of fact, she said, "Where on the earth is this place?" Because she was not expecting to be deported back there. I'm sure that if she was going to be deported, she was going to be thinking she was going to be deported back to her own country. So they're actually ordering her to come back to the U.S. since she was deported to the Republic of Congo, which is not her home.
That's some crazy freaking crap. The Colombia is in South America.
Right.
Congo is in freaking Africa.
Right.
Why? Why freaking? I know why. They like tossing these people into like random countries,
right.
Because it makes them harder to get back.
Yeah.
You know, when a judge is saying you've got to find her, you got to bring her back. But it's tough if you've stuck her in a country that is, you know, it might be a little chaotic, that might have made a deal with you. You maybe paid them $1,000 or $5,000 per deported person. You know, yeah, it's bad.
It's very bad. Hey, Sasha, quick question for you, and this is we'll get to some other international news as well, but just really quickly, how does Canada deal with the death penalty? Because I did see that Texas just executed a 600th inmate since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976, and actually this person that they executed was intellectually disabled, and they were executed for a retired professor's killing. So they apparently had some mental illness issues as well. But I guess because they were guilty, they went ahead and executed them and all along those lines. But I'm just not familiar with how Canada handles capital punishment, or if y'all even have capital punishment. So how does Canada deal with capital punishment?
We don't have capital punishment in Canada.
So you can be, you know, there's been a debate over this, obviously, for the whole history of capital punishment in the U.S., and there are arguments for and against. One is deterrence, that if you kill people for committing horrible crimes, will that stop other people from committing horrible crimes? That hasn't been proven. Cost. It costs more to kill somebody than to keep them locked up because of all the legal appeals. It takes like 10 years of legal fighting before you can get somebody to the death chamber, and it's expensive for the state. It's cheaper to imprison them for life. I've got an argument against a death penalty. When you kill somebody, they're done. Their suffering is over. Mm-hmm. You know, when you keep them locked up for life, you know, maybe that's meaner to a person who did horrible stuff. Though I don't know. But again, that's one more thing to argue about. And then a major thing to argue about is the guilt of the people you're killing. Mm-hmm. And you know, in up to 10% of cases, they got it wrong, and they're killing somebody who either didn't do the crimes or is mentally, you know, unfit to be responsible for what they did. You know, you kill somebody who's borderline retarded with an IQ of 70. That's a tough call to make.
Yep. And by the way, y'all have been not having death penalty since I was born, practically, because it was maybe.
One more issue is
just really quickly. I was just going to let folks know that are watching and wanting to know the history. But it says Canada abolished the death penalty for all crimes, with the last civilian execution occurring in 1962, and the full legal abolition completed in 1999. So even though y'all used to do it way back when, y'all have not been doing it for a number of years, because it said from 1867 until the abolition of the death penalty, 1,481 people were sentenced to death and 710 were executed predominantly by hanging. But the last civilian execution in Canada were the double hangings of Arthur Lucas and Ronald Turpin on December 11th, 1962 at Toronto's Don Jail. So y'all have not been doing it for a long time. So that's a good thing. Y'all are one of the countries that are not having it at all and everything like that. So that's just a little bit of history.
So another issue is drug companies don't like their drugs being used to kill people. So they refuse to supply drugs, making states have to resort to trickery, lying about what they're using the drugs for, or the states having to figure out another way to kill people, and often those ways don't go very well. And like one more issue is appeals. So, you know, in these red states, the red governors of red states often don't like granting, you know, saying, no, let's just keep this person whose guilt is in question in prison for life. Let's just avoid the issue of, you know, there's some question of their guilt. Red governors don't like doing that. The governor of Texas, you know, will go ahead and kill a retarded person.
Right.
It makes them look tough to their voters. So yeah, there are a lot of issues.
Yeah, a lot of issues there. Speaking of a lot of issues, it looks like Linda McMahon is defending the dismantling of the education department and shifting its work to other departments because 43 million Americans are buried in student debt. And I know family members, including myself, that are still dealing with that as well. But it definitely looks like Congress is debating Trump's idea of dismantling the education
that's
department.
okay. I mean, the education department is its own department. It hasn't been around that long. It used to be part of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. And so you could make an argument that, you know, but that's not what they're doing. They're not saying that it doesn't deserve its own department. They're saying that they don't want to, that they don't give a crap about education in general, and they don't give a crap about student debt. You know, the Republicans have been making the argument when Biden tried to reduce student debt that, oh, well, you're just giving money to the elites. What about the working people? And so they are dismantling a lot of the, you know, not shifting responsibility to other departments of the government. They're just abandoning it. So student debt, relieving student debt, making payment plans easier, and they don't care. Also, sexual assault on campus, they don't care. The part of used to be part of the education department would be to make sure that colleges were not covering up sexual assault, and that they were taking steps that when somebody is accused of it, that they're investigated, and if people at a college felt like that it was being covered up or pushed down, they could go to the ed department and ask for them to come in and look. Nope, they're not doing that anymore. So, you know, feel free to rape away, feel free to roofie a freshman girl at a frat party, because the education department does not give a crap about you. In fact, they've at least in Trump's first term, they made moves to make sure that rape investigations were more fair to the alleged rapist. Mm-hmm. So it's not that they're abandoning raped students. They have leaned in favor of the rapists. Mm-hmm. They're
awful and everything like that. Hey, Sasha, coming back to the world and everything like that, apparently we've talked about these drones and how effective the drones are, particularly for Ukraine, but I guess Russia is also launching a lot of drone attacks. But apparently Ukraine is teaming up their flying drones with war robots. And I know that Rick is very much into space movies and science fiction all along those lines. Everybody remembers Terminator, but it looks like Ukraine is actually getting real robots to actually do the fight and everything like that. So I just wondering, what are you hearing about these killer robots? Because apparently Ukraine is forging the future of warfare by combining robots and drones. So maybe you don't have to have as many human casualties as the robots are taking the casualties and everything like that. So what is your thoughts around these war robots?
Well, for the first time, Ukraine used this fighting robots back several months ago. And it's developing its processes. And I think it has a very bright future ahead of it, because essentially you cut your human losses to a minimum, to practically a zero. And it's very difficult to figure out how the enemy can attack your positions if they're facing defense by the robots, which are not vulnerable to all this normal firepower of enemy. So it has great potential, and see, the problem only is that there is no close combat lines these days because of the drones. So the attacking army, they can go so much because they are immediately attacked by drones, and it's hopeless. There is no defense against drone attacks. So I think that in that view, may slow down the development of robot armies. Just
I mean, Ukraine makes 10,000 drones a day, 4 million a year. So they're much more important than these robots. But Ukraine has released footage of a war robot taking 3 Russian soldiers prisoner. Now, these aren't like Terminator-looking robots. You know, they're probably on wheels, like little tanks with a gun mounted on them, or with you can use them to I guess attack soldiers, take them prisoner, or bring supplies to your own troops. But I'm guessing that it's great they're developing them because anytime you're using mechanical stuff instead of troops, you're at least saving the lives of your own troops. But they're much less important than drones. I mean, the Ukraine war is the first major drone-mediated war.
And remember that drones are very effective in attacking the enemy's positions and targets, and the robots, I think, they could be used for defense more than attack. They can, for example, rescue wounded soldiers from on the front lines and bring them back. So there is a use for them, absolutely. But
they're also terrifying. Like if the robot dogs with a gun on their head, those things could probably. I mean, I'm sure the Russian troops are very demoralized anyway, getting killed at a rate of 35,000 a month. But if you start sicking these, most people have seen the dogs. Right. That look like unstoppable death machines.
Like death machines and everything. Sasha, I've got good news for you and everything like that. I just got an email from Steve that said he'll be on your Ukrainian show. So it sounds like he's doing research right now and everything like that. So I just got an email from him saying that he was researching to be on your show. So
now Ivan will join us too.
I will be joining you as well. So that'll be good and everything like that. Just really quickly, what is your take on Poland and this withdrawal of troops from the U.S. from Poland, and will that hurt our international status? I mean,
it is just more Trump stupid shit. Like as I've always mentioned, the U.S. has 800 bases, military bases on foreign soil. That's part of the World Friendship Program that we started after World War II. We helped Europe rebuild. We extend aid across the world. We're every place, and Trump is pulling us back. And then when we pull back, China steps up. There's that Thucydides trap. We're a country in decline under Trump. China is a country on the rise. We shouldn't be doing this shit. We should, anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your take on it, Sasha? This whole notion of us pulling troops out of Poland.
It's not just Poland. What's happened is that Trump completely destroyed everything what America built since the Second World War. He is the worst case scenario for United States in the last 250 years. It will take many, many years, if not dozens of years, to rebuild America's position, if possible at all. I'm not so sure about that once Trump is done. And just all what I can say is you wanted American friends, Trump. You got Trump. And now it's payback time, babies.
Speaking of payback time, and I know that you follow talk shows and everything like that, Rick and everything, but I did watch it last night. I was actually up late watching it and everything. Letterman, and he's got a beard almost as thick as mine, even though I'm going to go see my barber on tomorrow and everything like that. But he is sending Colbert off the Late Show by destroying CBS property, because that used to be a routine of his when he was.
Letterman used to throw stuff off the roof, like watermelons and something.
And that's what he did this time. They threw off 2 of the chairs. I think they're the chairs that Letterman that Colbert has been using, as well as his chair. And they also, so the guest chairs, his chair, and watermelons and something else. I forgot what they threw off. But
and they made fun of CBS for canceling Colbert. I think Colbert has either 3 or 4 shows left, and Colbert's not hesitating. He has said that he likes the people he worked for at CBS, but he is taking shots at them because they said they canceled him for reasons of economics, and nobody believes that. But what this does do, and it's like a little teeny silver lining, that all the late night show hosts formed a group called Strike Force 5 during the writers' strike, and then they make a podcast together. The 2 Jimmys, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, and I watched, he had all of them on his show, I guess, a few days ago, and you put 5 funny people together on a couch. It was pretty entertaining. So when Colbert, becomes jobless, he has a job. He's writing the next Lord of the Rings movie, but he'll show up on. He'll probably show up on the Jimmys, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and it'll be funny when they're together because 2 funny guys. Hi Kim. Let me mention one thing quick before I get. MAGA is freaking out about this new movie coming out in June called The Odyssey, starring Matt Damon and a ton of other people. And it retells the story that's 2,400 years old of the frickin' Odyssey. And one of the characters is Helen of Troy, who's supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. So beautiful that she causes, I guess, all the action in the Odyssey to happen because people are fighting over her. And MAGA is pissed because in the movie, Helen, the world's most beautiful woman, is played by Lupita Nyong'o, who's a black lady. And MAGA's like, how dare they put a black lady in as a beauty? Who, if you see, she is crazy beautiful. So, but MAGA doesn't like it.
MAGA doesn't like it. MAGA doesn't like a lot of things. Speaking of MAGA, Kim, I'm glad to see that you're here and everything along those lines. But I wish Akil was here because there was a major case involving one of our favorite topics, the trans topic, but it came out of Australia because the Australia court doubles payout for a trans woman in a landmark discrimination case. So apparently there's an app called Giggle for Girls, and they are saying that it discriminated against a trans woman, and the appeal court apparently ruled when doubling the damages. So they are agreeing that this app was being discriminatory toward trans and everything. And I have no idea what a Giggle for Girls app is, but apparently it's an app that comes out of Australia and everything like that. So your thoughts around this trans right case being won in that area of Australia and everything like that? Because I know we talked about
it's a strange situation in my mind because Australia has a tendency to have the reputation of being a far right-wing extremist country. But when I was traveling in Bali, I met people from Australia who were not far right extremists. But most of them, strongly supported Trump. Many of them did, and, supported, I guess, all of his criminal activities. So I just don't, whatever Australia does, if it's doing something good, finally good.
Yeah,
but I just don't trust anything that comes out of Australia. Just like this morning, I was watching some guy from Australia, go, we don't support Trumbull. They call him, instead of Donald, Trundle Dump. And I'm like, where was that during the election? Where was that? So
Yeah, where was that and everything? But by the way, I just looked it up. Google for Girl was apparently a female-only social networking app designed to provide a safe online space for women, but it became the center of a landmark legal case over gender identity discrimination because apparently they were banning
well,
trans women. But it was founded by an Australian entrepreneur, Saul Glover, and it was a mobile app aimed at creating a social network platform because there are many of these app platforms.
I mean, in Utah, they're banning books now of, some of the women, not just of transgender, but they're just banning books of victims. And, so, the movement is starting big and strong. I don't think we need to ban books. You just need to teach your children what you want them to know. But yes, Rick.
So this is another thing with the Odyssey movie I just read. With trans people, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes between the before and the after, you see like a major change in the happiness level of the person. There's an actor, used to be named Ellen Page, transitioned. He is now Elliot Page, and he plays Achilles in the Odyssey. And again, MAGA is like, no, what? But if you look at the transition from Ellen Page was so bummed out. You could see her in public appearances as Ellen Page. And now as Elliot Page, he seems to be way happier. There's a comedian, Stacey K, I follow on X, who transitioned, and she seems to be loving life. Like, you look at her face in every single shot of her, and she seems wildly happy. Every once in a while, she'll put up a photo of her before self when she was a guy, and that guy is the saddest freaking guy in the world. So for some people, transition anyway. MAGA hates that they're using a trans actor in the audience.
When you start watching a big movement turn against people with prejudice, like they did against women, calling them witches and things like that, they fear that person brings in a reality check truth that goes against their grain of thought. So, so what you need to do is, unfortunately, many people will die when you have a situation like this, but it is the resistance that people will put up, like a movie like this or a book, that will prevent the monarchy of, an empire like what MAGA is trying to establish. And one of the biggest problems I have right now is the redistricting of the election maps. I think that is as wrong as any human can get in this country. And when you stop taking care of yourself and worrying about others like they're doing, they're just trying to tell everybody what to do and manipulate, you lose what is meant for us to do in life. We're supposed to take care of ourselves first, right? We're supposed to worry about ourselves. And, I know that we have to have certain laws in place to protect a community, but this isn't the way our life should be. And we need to start refocusing that. But right now we're being manipulated and divided. Being divided is one big way that we will be removed from the face of the earth, and history will be rewritten. There's no way we can overcome the debt. No way. It is.
There's a quote we see from Martin Luther King Jr., which is, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And that justice is including more people, giving more rights to more people. And MAGA wants to hold on to stuff for itself. For the Republicans.
Yeah, they do. You're right. One of the things that have been scaring me just a little bit is majority of the people that have been pardoned from January 6th or other pardons, they're recommitting crimes that are worse. Like a lot of them are being picked up for being horrendous pedophiles. One guy had over 100,000 photos, and that's all that they found on one device of children being abused in a sexual way, including toddlers. So the sickness in this society is spreading. This is the virus. This is the virus that will
about
kill us.
1,500 people who rioted on January 6th were pardoned by Trump. Of those 1,540 of them have been rearrested for new crimes. So that's a rate of little less than 3%, which is got to be more than the general population.
I think that they just haven't recorded all of the people. I mean, from the get-go, there were a few who were being arrested for DUIs and with murder. But I have a feeling that anyone who was at the White House or the Capitol that day committing treason and destroying the Capitol, they're just criminals. They're just, and you can't change that mind.
I think it's a mix of lunatics, criminals, and gullible people. And so some people got caught up in it, believed a bunch of bullshit. There's one woman, I think she's called the MAGA grandma, who participated in it and then realized, wait, I was wrong. I was gullible. This is stupid. And she turned around and she said, I shouldn't have done it. And that this whole thing is a bunch of that what I did was dangerous bullshit.
There was a few honorable people who refused the pardon. Very few. But there were a few honorable people who said, I know I need to stand responsible for my own actions. And those are the people I trust. When I look, they committed treason. They destroyed the Capitol. They probably participated in killing a few people there. But when you stand up to take responsibility for your actions, that says a lot. Just apologizing and getting a pardon doesn't say anything to me, because and I'll guarantee you, before Trump's term is over, there will be more that will have recommitted. So it's a bad, we've set a bad precedence in this country by electing a convicted felon, pedophile with a history of not having a conscious mind to consider consequences of his actions.
So the people feel regret because we came the closest to impeaching a president, not impeaching, but kicking a president out of office. We came the closest in history that after Trump encouraged the January 6th riot, he was impeached and put on trial in the Senate, and 57 senators voted to kick him out of office. But you need 2/3, so they fell 10 votes short. If Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, had said, go ahead, kick him out, then he would have been kicked out. He couldn't have run again. And it would have saved us from our current dilemmas, or most of our current dilemmas. But here we are.
The question that resides now, by redistricting the map in their favor, is there a way that Democrats can still come in and take over?
They're still going to lose the House because they can only afford to lose 2 seats. And they're going to lose, even with redistricting, they're going to lose more than 20. And it could be a lot more than 20. And the online bookies and the prediction markets are giving the Dems a 3/4 chance of retaking the House. But I think the odds are even higher.
How can they do it with the maps being redistricted? How can a Democrat?
Because if this were a normal elect without the gerrymander, the deal is that the more and more seats get gerrymandered, but there's still 28 toss-up seats. And they're going to lose a lot of those seats. They can only afford to lose 2 of them. More. This is the second most people retiring, deciding not to run again for election, retiring from the House and Senate in history. And that is a bellwether for the Republicans losing. So with the redistricting BS, instead of losing 31 seats, they may only lose 23 seats, but they could only afford to lose 2, so they're still going to lose control of the House.
But can they still win even though they redistrict? Is there a way that people can just say we don't?
Well, here's some scenarios. One is Trump figures out a way to get out of Iran. And this is day 12 of gas over $4.50 a gallon. This is the 6th week of gas over $4 a gallon. It was over $4 a gallon for 20 weeks under Biden. People hated that. They hate the gas prices, right? If Trump,
how much was it? 12 weeks with Biden?
20 weeks of gas over $4 a gallon.
With Biden.
6 weeks right now. If Trump can figure out a way to end this Iran thing fast, we're still almost 6 months away. If he figures out a way to tip over Cuba and gives us a legit military political victory, his approval will go up. Right now, his approval is the lowest of any president ever at this point in an administration. But if Trump can pull out of that and give Americans some victories and some price relief, he's running out of time because the rising inflation's at 3.8. It'll be over 4% next month, over 4.5% possibly the month after that. So he has very little time to get gas cheap again because it takes a couple months for prices to start dropping. But if he can do any of that, it's possible. If he can do some voter suppression, which he doesn't seem to be able to pull off, it's possible. People have been bullshitted successfully by Trump before. In 2024, he won an election he shouldn't have frickin' won because the Democrats were demoralized and they didn't show up to vote.
The people who are really running out of time isn't Trump. It's the people of the country. Our country is running out of time for someone to do something about this, to fix the problem, to stop the gerrymandering, to take away the powers from those who are misusing their powers. The time has run out for the country. The time has run out for the people, not for the president. And I think that we need to stand up and take our country back. I don't know how we do it.
Show up
and vote. But again, we keep running into this, back and forth. We need to get rid of parties. That we need to do away with parties.
Well, we're not going to do it in the next 6 months. Maybe
we're not going to do it in the next 6 years.
And also talk to Republican voters. If you have only about half of Republicans at this point remained strong supporters of Trump.
They still worship him.
Yeah, but that's only
right.
That's only
Biden did this.
Only 22% of voters strongly support Trump still. That leaves 15% of Republicans who don't support him strongly, and you can talk to those people. And independents, lots of independents voted for Trump. Talk to independents and say, is this really what you voted for? This crazy crap, this ballroom, this nonsense all the time? And they'll be like, no, but then they'll say, but the Democrats. And
always,
then you can say, but all right, the Democrats, they're wussies. You don't think they have any ideas, but all the Trump ideas are bad ideas. So just give them a chance. Just talk.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
All right, I'll see you on Monday.
Take care, everyone. Until we see you Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stay safe and take care.